What is going on, baseball fans? Ryan Thomas here. This is the Thomas Tick Sports Podcast Top 10 Fantasy Baseball 2024, Episode 2. Just wrapped up, of course, the last episode featuring the top 10 catchers for fantasy baseball purposes in the game today, ranking those from 10 down to 1. The countdown now begins for the Fantasy Baseball First Basemen of 2024 top 10 list. This list features some straight up bruisers of the baseball. We'll just put it that way. This was a great list put together. Some new names, some rising stars, some guys that you've heard of before if you're avid baseball fans like myself, some guys that you should know if you are going to play fantasy baseball for the first time. That's why I put these lists together, to help people win their league. Of course, you're watching a often fantasy baseball league winner, to say the least. So really happy to put this list together, letting you guys know who to look out for, who you should draft. From the genius himself, as it says there under my first and last name there. I had to put that for myself just to make some fun of the list and the episode, of course. So I always like to keep things real. I always like to let you guys know that in this podcast, you guys can feel free to comment your thoughts on some of the names that I've listed, that I will list throughout this Fantasy Baseball Top 10 show, First Baseman 2024 season. I've been playing fantasy baseball for a long, long time, actually longer than I've been playing fantasy football, dating back, I think, to 2003, 2002. When I was 10 or 11 years old. So to put it in perspective, I'm pushing like my 20th year here playing fantasy baseball, and I really love it. It's a long-term commitment, but the gain, the reward is so worth it. Yeah, when you win your fantasy baseball league, you really feel like, you do feel like you accomplished something. So this top 10 starts off with number 10. I'll count down from 10 to 1, as I like to do. And let's go with number 10. Now, number 10 features a name, Spencer Torkelson. One of the coolest names in all of baseball, for sure. Spencer Torkelson was a name that was first overall pick. Hot shot, hot project, big time prospect. Drafted first overall by the Detroit Tigers. Got the chance to see him in AAA. This guy's big. He's strong. Great glove at first base, which I think is a very underrated attribute nowadays. We always talk about how third basemen have cannons for arms. First basemen, they got to pluck those balls, whether they're low, to the side, high. Spencer Torkelson, a really good first baseman. So I know that doesn't necessarily count, right? Fielding doesn't necessarily count for your fantasy baseball categories. You're playing, whether it's a 12 category league or a 10 category league that you're in, fielding percentage should not be one of those categories, right? Some people play crazy rules. I know that, but this is statistically a catcher that I feel is only going to start to hit his stride. There were some struggles for Spencer Torkelson over the last 2 years. No doubt about it. He was brought up. It didn't go well really at all. He could barely hit his body weight. They brought him back down to AAA. Didn't really go well there either, but then it was like, you know what? We're going to bring him back up, feed him to the Wolves, and he was eating at the plate. He was doing really well as the season wore on, but by then, the Detroit Tigers, their season was all but over, and Detroit is a pretty bad team. Top to bottom, they have a few pieces. They added Jack Flaherty this offseason for their starting pitching rotation. For the sake of the Detroit fans and for the sake of that gorgeous ballpark that's in downtown Detroit, Michigan, I hope that the Tigers are much better than what they've been. And a big reason why I think they could be would be because of Spencer Torkelson, first baseman, Detroit Tigers, number 10 on my list. Now, this next name is a name that I added later in the season. I'm talking July, mid-July, maybe even late July. I'd have to go back and look, but this is a name that I think this player is going to be a superstar. Not many people know him, but you should know him. Nolan Jones of the Colorado Rockies. Really love me some Nolan Jones. He's somebody that I wish was on my Boston Red Sox. He's not, but he's hitting dingers in the thin air of that Coors Field in Colorado. Of course, Denver, Colorado out there. Seeing him play first and seeing him play outfield makes me really happy as a fantasy baseball owner because you're able to flex him around, move him around your lineup, put him wherever you want to put him, essentially. And that's big, right? To have that flexibility day to day. It's a long season. You want to have everybody playing, as many players playing as possible. You got to hit those numbers. You got to get the best numbers possible. More at bats with great players, the better. Nolan Jones, I think, can be a great player. Number 8. Now, this is the first mention of a guy that plays for the team that I root for, the Boston Red Sox, that I've had on this top 10 list show. Catchers, Reese McGuire wasn't in that top 10. Spoiler alert, Connor Wong was not in that top 10. No disrespect to those guys, but Tristan Casas is in the top 10 of the Boston Red Sox. Tristan Casas, I saw greatness from this guy post the All-Star break. Pre-April, May, little rocky. June, he started to find his footing. July, August, September, he was one of the best hitters outside of Rafael Devers inside that Boston Red Sox lineup. There is a lot to be excited about when we do look at the youth movement that's a part of the Red Sox future. Tristan Casas is already a part of the Red Sox present and is going to be a part of their future as well. Really excited to see what he brings to the table here in 2024. I know physically he is in much better shape than what he was in last season, and it was kind of a slow burn for him, as this was the first season last year where he really manned that first base position as a starting first baseman for the first time in his Major League Baseball career. Much more grueling regimen to be ready for that position at that level, playing every day at the ballpark that I'm at right now, Fenway Park, on this virtual screen. So Tristan Casas, I think, has a lot of potential. I could easily see 30 home runs, 80 RBIs, 90 RBIs with a 270-plus batting average from Tristan Casas. He plays Fenway really well and is just a really sound hitter. Tristan Casas could be higher on this list by season's end. And I always like to kind of compare preseason, postseason, where do these guys rank? Casas could be higher than 8 for sure. Number 7, Christian Walker. Christian Walker of the Arizona Diamondbacks, last season's National League pennant winner, Arizona Diamondbacks. Yeah, that happened. They played the World Series last year. They came up short, but man, did they make it. That was a hell of a playoff run to make it there. And Christian Walker wasn't really necessarily, I should say, a part of that. He was pretty much non-existent in the postseason, oddly enough, but regular season, he was doing it for the Christian Walkers, for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He was doing it. He was hitting the ball, driving the ball, and I think he's one of the better power-hitting first basemen in the league that nobody really knows about, along with guys like Tristan Casas and Nolan Jones. I kind of lumped the 10 to 7 together, and now you'll start to see some names as we round out this top 10 from 6 to 1 that you will recognize if you're an avid baseball fan. So I'm going number 6, one of the most consistent hitters of his generation, Paul Goldschmidt. And the only reason why I have Paul Goldschmidt listed at 6th, not 4th, not 3rd, not 5th, is because of the team he plays for. St. Louis was flat out bad last year. They were terrible. They were really bad. Arizona was better than St. Louis, obviously, in terms of, runs and things like that as a team. Paul Goldschmidt still did his thing despite being on a really bad team. I think that is going to change a little bit this year. I do expect the Cardinals to be a much better team here in 2024. But at what level will we see Paul Goldschmidt remain? That's going to be an interesting storyline, because eventually the years are going to add up on Paul Goldschmidt, and the performances that he had put together in previous seasons back to back to back to back, eventually those seasons are going to stop. Is this the year where that stops? Is this the year where the prime Paul Goldschmidt is no longer in his prime? I've always been a fan of Paul Goldschmidt. I want to see him continue to do really well. But I think putting him at 6 here is a pretty accurate representation of where he is at terms of his career, the team he plays for, and maybe age becoming a factor heading into this year. Now, the 5th ranked first baseman on my list plays a little bit of outfield as well. Cody Bellinger. And right now, I think Cody Bellinger is the best bat that the market has still available. As of this recording, February 3rd, 2024, Cody Bellinger is still a free agent. The former Dodger, the former Cub, still a free agent. I don't understand it. I'm shocked by it. I'm shocked that, like, the Toronto Blue Jays didn't go in on Cody Bellinger. They just signed Justin Turner instead. Shocked the Yankees haven't gone out and gotten Cody Bellinger yet. Shocked the Red Sox haven't gone out and got Cody Bellinger yet. There are dozens of teams that could go out and sign Cody Bellinger, and it would make sense. He makes sense on any team. With the year that he had last year as a Chicago Cub, I'm shocked Chicago isn't bringing him back or has not brought him back yet. So we will see. But Cody Bellinger, I have ranked 5th. Number 4, Vlad Guerrero Jr., I have listed as the 4th. Vlad Guerrero Jr. is a stud, flat out stud. I love Vlad Guerrero Jr. I think I'm a little biased in this regard. Got the chance to see him play in Buffalo. Was a massive fan of his dad back when he played for the Montreal Expos, as well as the Angels. Even when Vlad Sr. was playing for the Baltimore Orioles, I just love Vlad Guerrero. I love Vlad Jr. And to me, Toronto is one of those teams that Ken Rosenthal, who's basically like the Adam Schefter of Major League Baseball news, he came up with a really good term for the Toronto Blue Jays. I think it's a valid term. I think it's a term that makes a lot of sense. He referred to the Blue Jays as paper tigers, referring to, on paper, that lineup is as good as any. On paper, that rotation should be able to get it done. But for a lot of reasons, Toronto has been the league's biggest disappointment. Whether it's AL, NL, the league entirely, they just have not lived up to their own potential. And I think Vlad Jr. is a little bit of a part of that. He had a down year last year. I think with a great year last year, I would have ranked him as high as what would have been my top 3, top 2 potentially. But 4 is a good spot for Vlad Jr. I think the 3 other guys, ranking these guys as I do, I could justifiably see anybody taking the next 3 guys ahead of Vlad Guerrero Jr. But if you don't get these next 3 guys that I list and you do get Vlad, you could end up getting the best one out of all of them by this season's end. I feel like a redemption tour is in store for the Toronto Blue Jays, among a couple other teams, the Arizona Diamondbacks, teams that just didn't live up to their moment, whether it was not making the playoffs or getting knocked out of the playoffs or losing the World Series after an illustrious run like the Diamondbacks had. Realistically, I think Vlad could be the best first baseman fantasy baseball-wise in the league. Now, before I dive into the top 3, I hope you guys have enjoyed the countdown thus far. Just providing a recap to it, we'll go from 10 to 3. Number 10, Spencer Torkelson of the Detroit Tigers. Number 9, Nolan Jones of the Colorado Rockies. Number 8, Tristan Casas of the Boston Red Sox. Number 7, Christian Walker of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Number 6, Paul Goldschmidt of the St. Louis Cardinals. Number 5, free agent. Yes, you heard that right. Free agent Cody Bellinger. And number 4, the offspring, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Toronto Blue Jays, of course. So that's the countdown thus far. A lot of really good names from 10 to 4. I think first baseman's a really healthy position this year. Couldn't say that in years past. There's a lot of new pieces to that position that become a part of that top 10 puzzle. So number 3, I had a really hard time putting this top 3 together because realistically I could see number 3 being number 1 by season's end. None other than New York Met himself, Pete Alonso. Now, Pete Alonso has burst onto the scene these last 2-3 years as one of the best pure power hitters of his era. It's a shame that he doesn't play for a better team. It's a shame what has happened over the course of the last couple years to the New York Mets. They went all in with Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, thinking that would be enough. It blew up in their face. I'm here to tell you that this could be the last year of Pete Alonso in a New York Mets uniform. And if it is, the New York Mets are ridiculously stupid for letting him walk, if they do. Because Pete Alonso is perfect for Mets fans, Queens, whatever you want to call it, the blue and orange. He's a perfect player for that fan base, and he loves being a Met. So if they don't get it done in terms of keeping him on board for the entirety of his career, I think it's a huge missed opportunity by the New York Mets. And any team that gets this guy, if he becomes a free agent, would just be one of the luckiest teams ever. So Pete Alonso, third on this list. Number 2, a guy that I think had the best season of any first baseman last year, Matt Olson of the Atlanta Braves. Now, you weigh in a top 10 whether you rank a player based on that player's ability as well as that player's team. If that player's team is really good and the player is really good, then the player should be ranked high. If the player is good and the team is so-so, that can impact his ranking. Case in point, this top 10, Paul Goldschmidt ranked 6th. If he was on, let's just say, the Toronto Blue Jays, or if he was on the New York Yankees, he'd be ranked a little bit higher, right? Matt Olson is ranked at 2nd because he's a great player. And if you're not catching my drift, the Atlanta Braves are a great team. So Matt Olson put up numbers that nobody really talks about. And I want to pull them up here using my handy-dandy friend Pro Baseball Reference. Pulling these numbers up, last season, 28-year-old Matt Olson at that time put together what I thought was an MVP caliber year. Truly incredible. 54 home runs, a 283 batting average. Of course, 172 hits in that case, 139 RBIs, and 127 runs with an OBP of 389 and a slugging percentage of 604. That is incredible. Had it not been for Ronald Acuna hitting 40 bombs and stealing 70 bases, I think Matt Olson's the MVP of the Atlanta Braves. Wouldn't you with those numbers? I mean, maybe they're co-MVPs. I don't know which one you'd pick as an MVP. But when the Atlanta Braves went after Matt Olson and they let Freddie Freeman go, a lot of people looked at that and said that was a weird move. Why would they let their, franchise first baseman, the Atlanta loved Freddie Freeman walk? Matt Olson was younger by a few years, and he's in his more of its prime. So that was a smart move. Less money as well. But Matt Olson, number 2. Number 2, the guy that he replaced at number 1, Freddie Freeman. And to me, the reason I have Freddie Freeman number 1 is for the same reason that Peyton Manning was the number 1 fantasy quarterback for so many years. That consistency, that level of consistency that you can rely on each and every year. Freddie Freeman, being a part of the LA Dodgers now, has actually helped raise his stock even higher from when he was in Atlanta. Freddie Freeman in Atlanta versus Freddie Freeman on this Dodgers team, both are pretty good players. But I think this Dodgers team in 2024, it's safe to say they're built different. Shohei Ohtani batting 3rd, Freddie Freeman batting 2nd, Mookie Betts batting leadoff. That is going to be a triple threat to start every game, every day at Dodger Stadium and abroad. And Freddie Freeman, Gold Glove first baseman at that. I know that doesn't matter for the fantasy football categories, but to me, I have a real hard time ranking anybody over Freddie Freeman, but the guy that earned the right to be ranked as close to Freddie Freeman as he was, as he is, according to this ranking, is the guy that he replaced, Matt Olson. I think the Braves and Dodgers are the 2 best teams in the National League, and that's why I have Olson at 2, Freddie Freeman at 1. I think the Dodgers are just a hair better than the Braves right now, largely due to the Yamamoto and the Ohtani additions. So there you have it. Ryan Thomas ranking his top 10 2024 fantasy baseball first baseman list. Thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, I'll be right back for another episode very soon. Stay posted, stay up to date for the top 10 second baseman. I got the list right in front of me here. Cannot wait to dive into that and much, much more on the top 10 lists for your fantasy baseball.